Have you ever noticed that when an AI system can suddenly see images or hear you talk, it just feels smarter, like way more capable? Well, today we're going to dig into why that is. We're going to explore what's really going on under the hood with these multimodal systems.
Yeah, this quote from our source material just hits the nail on the head. There's this really powerful, almost gut reaction we have when AI moves beyond just text. The whole experience feels richer, more complete, and because of that, it's a heck of a lot more convincing. And that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Is the system actually getting more intelligent, or is there something else at play? Getting this distinction right is absolutely crucial, especially when you're working in regulated spaces.
So, our first stop is what we're calling the multimodal illusion. This is all about our human experience, why these richer, more dynamic outputs are so incredibly persuasive to us. Okay, check this out. The contrast on this slide tells the whole story. On the left, that's our perception. It feels richer, more intentional, and for sure, way more convincing. But then, look at the reality on the right. It's kind of boring, right? The core of the system is still just doing probabilistic text generation. The fundamental reasoning hasn't changed at all. All those fancy inputs, they just get processed into a common format before hitting the exact same engine. So if the system itself isn't really changing, why does it feel so different to us? Well, this brings us to a really cool idea called mental models. Basically, they're the helpful analogies we all use to get our heads around new technology. Think of a mental model like training wheels for your brain. It's a useful shortcut, a great way to build intuition when you're first learning something new. But the key phrase here is helpful scaffolding. It is not a technical blueprint of how this system actually works. It's a temporary helper, and that's all. And this is where that scaffolding has to come down. The source material is crystal clear about this. When the stakes get high, when you're talking about risk, authority, accountability, or you're trying to analyze how the system really behaves, those intuitive analogies aren't just unhelpful, they become dangerous. You have to let them go.
And here's the non-negotiable takeaway from that. For any serious, safe, or compliant work, those fuzzy mental models have to be replaced by rigorous, formal descriptions of what's happening. When safety and accountability are on the line, there's just no room for kind of feels like.
So let's build that formal model right now. We're going to deconstruct what's actually happening step by step when you feed a multimodal system an image or an audio clip.
It's really just a simple three-step process. First, the system gets an input: text, image, sound, whatever. Second, and this is the key part, all of those different inputs get translated into a single common format. And finally, that unified input gets fed to the same old text generation engine. The engine doesn't change, just the data it sees after it's been translated.
Understanding that simple technical reality has massive consequences for governance. Because our perception doesn't match the reality, organizations have to step in and engineer some really firm boundaries to manage that risk. This rule right here is the guiding principle for doing this safely. Any image, any diagram is purely there to help a human understand something. It can never, ever be used to imply that the system is acting on its own, making decisions, or has any kind of authority. Period. And this table shows you just how seriously this stuff is taken. The rules are super specific. No cute robot faces or diagrams of brains, because that makes us think of the model as a mind. No diagrams of pipelines that look like they're running themselves. This is all about stopping those dangerous mental models before they can even take root in a professional setting. Okay, this all brings us to what I think is the single most important takeaway of this whole explainer. It's a distinction that can literally mean the difference between using a tool safely and making a really, really big mistake. Now, the source doesn't give us a hard number, so let's just use this as a way to think about the concept. Media is incredibly persuasive. Adding a picture or a video clip next to some text can dramatically increase its power to persuade us, to make us trust it. And that's the whole point. By engaging more of our senses, by feeling more complete, multimodal AI has a much, much greater ability to influence our thinking and our decisions. This is an undeniable effect. But, and this is the part we absolutely have to remember, that huge jump in influence does not come with any increase in authority. The system is no more correct, no more autonomous, and no more accountable than if it just gave you plain text. It's a tool, not an actor. So let's quickly recap the big ideas. 1. Multimodal features change how we perceive an AI,
not how it actually reasons. 2. The persuasive power that comes with media actually increases risk by creating that gap between what we see and what's real. 3. Always remember these are powerful assistive tools, not independent actors. And 4. For anything that needs to be safe and compliant, formal models have to take over from our handy mental shortcut.
And so that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. Knowing that these systems are only going to get more and more influential, how will your organization draw and enforce that critical line between their persuasive influence and actual operational authority?